The ivory envelope arrived on a Tuesday morning, delivered by courier to Jasmine's office. Rachel brought it in with the usual stack of mail, but something about this particular envelope made her pause before setting it on Jasmine's desk. "This one came by special delivery," Rachel said, her tone curious. "Hand addressed to you personally." Jasmine glanced up from the acquisition proposal she was reviewing. The envelope was expensive. Thick stock, subtle embossing, the kind of stationery that cost more than most people spent on groceries. Her name was written in elegant calligraphy across the front. Ms. Jasmine Dawson. She knew what it was before she opened it. Some instinct, some memory buried deep in her bones, recognized the weight of impending confrontation. Inside, the invitation was everything she'd expected. Formal. Elegant. Announcing the marriage of Kendrick Alexander Ray to Vivian Elizabeth Harrington at the Plaza Hotel's Grand Ballroom. Black tie required. The date was 6 weeks away. But it was the handwritten note tucked inside that made Jasmine's blood run cold. Then hot, then cold again. The handwriting was Kendrick's. She'd recognize it anywhere. Bold strokes, slightly aggressive, each letter precisely formed. The note read, "Jasmine, I'd love for you to see what you could never be. I thought you might appreciate witnessing what real success looks like. Do come. K." For a long moment, Jasmine sat perfectly still, the invitation held between her fingers. 10 years. 10 years of silence, of rebuilding, of transforming herself from the broken woman he'd discarded into someone formidable. And now this. Not an apology. Not even acknowledgement of the children he'd denied. Just one final twist of the knife. One last attempt to prove he'd won. Rachel had returned with coffee and noticed the expression on Jasmine's face. Bad news. An invitation. Jasmine's voice was carefully neutral. To a wedding. Oh. Rachel set down the coffee. Anyone we know? My ex-husband. The words hung in the air. Jasmine never talked about her past, about the twins' father, about the years before Dawson and Company. Her staff knew she was a single mother who'd built her business from nothing, but the details remained private, locked away in a chapter of her life she'd thought was closed. Rachel's eyes widened. The one who? Yes. Jasmine cut her off gently. That one. Are you okay? Jasmine looked at the invitation again, at Kendrick's cruel note, at the proof that he still saw her as something to be pitted and mocked. And then she thought of Jordan and Jada, who were at this moment sitting in their advanced mathematics class at the academy. She thought of her offices in 3 cities, of her 43 employees, of the Forbes article that would run next month. She thought of the woman she'd become in the rubble of the woman he'd destroyed. "I'm fine," she said, and realized it was true. "Actually, I'm better than fine." Rachel hesitated. "Will you go to the wedding?" It was a reasonable question. Why would anyone subject themselves to witnessing their ex-husband marry someone else? Why walk voluntarily into what was clearly designed to be a humiliation? But Rachel didn't know the whole story. She didn't know about the pregnancy test on the hardwood floor, or the rose petals that had mocked Jasmine's shattered dreams. She didn't know about Kendrick's voice saying, "You're nothing," while their children grew in her womb. She didn't know about the shelter, the cleaning job, the nights Jasmine had gone hungry so the twins could eat. Rachel didn't know that Kendrick had no idea Jordan and Jada existed. That he'd walked away believing he'd successfully erased his mistake. A smile curved Jasmine's lips. Not a happy smile, but something sharper, colder. The smile of a woman who'd been underestimated and had spent a decade proving every doubt wrong. "Yes," Jasmine said softly. "I'll go. And I'll bring guests." "You're sure?" "I mean, that note is deliberately cruel. He's trying to hurt you. He's trying to hurt the woman he remembers." Jasmine set the invitation down carefully, precisely, as if it were a chess piece she was moving into position. But that woman doesn't exist anymore. She pulled out her phone and took a photo of the invitation, then sent a text to her personal attorney, Daniel Rodriguez, who'd helped her navigate business contracts and custody documentation, though there'd never been anyone to fight for custody against. The response came within minutes. "Interesting timing. Need anything?" Jasmine typed back. "Stand by. Things might get complicated." Rachel was still hovering, concern etched on her face. "Ms. Dawson, you don't have to do this. You don't have to prove anything to him." "You're right. I don't have to prove anything." Jasmine stood and walked to her window, looking out over the city. "But I want to. He sent this invitation because he thinks I'm still that desperate girl he threw away. He thinks I'm still broken. He thinks showing me his upgrade will somehow validate his cruelty. And you're going to show him he's wrong." "No." Jasmine turned back to face Rachel. "I'm going to show him the truth. That he threw away the best thing that ever happened to him. That the children he denied are extraordinary human beings who've never needed him. That the woman he called nothing built something remarkable without him." She picked up the invitation again, studying the elegant script, the expensive cardstock, the obvious display of wealth and status. The Plaza Hotel. Black tie. A wedding designed to broadcast success and social standing. "RSVP for me, please," Jasmine said, handing the invitation to Rachel. "Ms. Jasmine Dawson and 2 guests. We'll be attending." Rachel took the invitation, understanding dawning in her eyes. The twins. Jordan and Jada deserve to see who their father is. Not the sanitized version I've told them, but the real man. The one who valued status over family. The one who threw away his own children because they came wrapped in the wrong package. Jasmine's voice was steel wrapped in silk. "And Kendrick deserves to see what he lost. This is going to cause a scene." "I certainly hope so." Jasmine returned to her desk, already mentally cataloging what needed to happen in the next 6 weeks. Schedule a fitting appointment at Saks. The twins will need formal wear. Something impeccable. I want them to walk into that ballroom looking like the remarkable young people they are. "And you?" Jasmine smiled, and this time there was genuine pleasure in it. "I'll wear emerald. Kendrick always hated when I wore green. He said it clashed with my skin tone. I'll prove him wrong about that too." After Rachel left to make the arrangements, Jasmine sat alone in her office, the cruel note still on her desk. She read it one more time, letting the malice wash over her without touching her. He'd meant to wound her. Instead, he'd given her a gift, an opportunity to close this chapter completely, to stand in front of the man who'd tried to destroy her and show him exactly how thoroughly he'd failed. She picked up her phone and called her mother, who'd watched the twins grow from struggling premature infants into thriving, brilliant children, who'd seen Jasmine claw her way from nothing to everything. "Mama," Jasmine said when her mother answered, "remember how you always said God makes a way out of no way?" "Of course, baby." "Why?" "Because I just got invited to a wedding. And I'm about to show someone what grace under pressure really looks like." Her mother was quiet for a moment, then laughed. The deep, knowing laugh of a woman who'd survived her own struggles and raised a daughter who refused to stay broken. "Wear your best dress, baby girl. And walk in there with your head high." "I intend to," Jasmine said. "With Jordan and Jada right beside me." Outside her window, the city glittered in afternoon sun. 6 weeks. In 6 weeks, Kendrick Ray would learn the most expensive lesson of his life. That some mistakes can't be unmade, and some people you underestimate become your reckoning. The Plaza Hotel's grand ballroom glittered with the kind of wealth that whispered rather than shouted. Crystal chandeliers cast soft light over tables draped in ivory silk, centerpieces of white roses and orchids reaching toward the vaulted ceiling. The guests were exactly what Jasmine had expected. Old money in designer gowns and tailored tuxedos, the kind of people Kendrick had always aspired to impress. Jasmine stood outside the ballroom entrance with Jordan and Jada, taking one last moment before they stepped into the lion's den. She adjusted Jordan's navy tie, perfectly knotted, but she needed something to do with her hands, and smoothed a non-existent wrinkle from Jada's sophisticated cream dress. "You both look perfect," she said softly. Jordan met her eyes with a steadiness that belied his 10 years. "Are you sure about this, Mama?" In the past 6 weeks, Jasmine had told them everything. About Kendrick, about the pregnancy test and the rose petals, about being cast out and homeless. About his denial of their existence. She'd watched their faces as they processed that their father hadn't just left. He'd actively rejected them before they were even born. Jada had cried. Jordan had gotten very quiet, his jaw set in a way that reminded Jasmine painfully of Kendrick himself. But both had agreed to come tonight, to stand beside their mother as she faced the man who'd tried to erase them all. "I'm sure," Jasmine said. "But if either of you wants to leave at any point." "We're not leaving," Jada said firmly. "We're staying right beside you." Jasmine looked at her children, her extraordinary, resilient, brilliant children, and felt something settle deep in her chest. Whatever happened in the next few hours, they would face it together. She took a breath and nodded to the attendant at the door. "We're ready." The three of them entered the ballroom together, Jasmine in the center with Jordan on her right and Jada on her left. Her emerald suit was impeccably tailored, the color rich against her brown skin, her locks styled in an elegant updo that had taken 2 hours to perfect. She wore simple diamond earrings, real ones that she'd bought for herself, and heels that brought her to nearly 6 feet. The effect was immediate and electric. Conversations died mid-sentence as heads turned. Jasmine felt the weight of 200 pairs of eyes settling on them, taking in the striking woman in emerald and the 2 impeccably dressed children flanking her like young royalty. She kept her spine straight, her head high, her expression serene. This was what she'd learned in 10 years of boardrooms and negotiations. How to command a room simply by believing you belong there. Near the front of the ballroom, Kendrick stood with Vivian Harrington at his side, greeting guests in a receiving line. Jasmine saw the moment he noticed her. His practiced smile froze. The color drained from his face as if someone had opened a valve. His hand, which had been reaching out to shake someone's hand, dropped to his side. He looked older than she remembered. Still handsome, still wearing wealth and success like armor, but there were lines around his eyes now, and something brittle in the way he held himself. He was staring at Jasmine with the expression of a man seeing a ghost, which in a way he was. The ghost of the woman he'd tried to bury. But it was Vivian's reaction that Jasmine found most interesting. The bride-to-be followed her fiancé's frozen stare and her eyes widened with recognition. Not of Jasmine's face, but of something familiar in her presence. "Kendrick." Vivian's voice carried in the sudden hush. "Who is that stunning woman?" Before Kendrick could answer, a voice from nearby responded. Marcus Chen, Jasmine's director of operations and former CEO of TechVista, stood with a group of business contacts. He hadn't known about Jasmine's connection to Kendrick, she'd never told him, but he knew excellence when he saw it. "That's Jasmine Dawson," Marcus said, his voice carrying across the quiet ballroom. "She's the CEO of Dawson & Company Consultancy, one of the most brilliant operational minds in the industry. She's transformed half the companies in this city." The whispers started then, spreading through the crowd like ripples across water. Jasmine could hear fragments of recognition, people who'd read the Forbes article or heard her speak at conferences or worked with companies she'd consulted for. Dawson & Company, they saved our acquisition. Heard she increased operational efficiency by 40%. Isn't she the one featured in Forbes last month? Vivian's father, Richard Harrington, approached Jasmine with a broad smile, completely oblivious to the tension radiating from Kendrick. "Ms. Dawson, what a delightful surprise. I didn't know you knew Kendrick. Small world, isn't it?" Jasmine accepted his handshake with a gracious smile. "Mr. Harrington, lovely to see you again. Congratulations on your daughter's wedding." Thank you. Let me introduce you properly to Vivian and Kendrick." He turned, gesturing for them to join him. Kendrick moved like a man walking toward his own execution. Up close, Jasmine could see the panic in his eyes, the calculations racing behind his frozen expression. Vivian came with him, her curiosity evident, still unaware of the bomb about to detonate. "Vivian, Kendrick, this is Jasmine Dawson, the consultant I was telling you about. We're hoping to work with her firm on our expansion project." Richard beamed, completely missing the undercurrents. "Ms. Dawson, my daughter Vivian, and her fiancé, Kendrick Ray." Jasmine extended her hand to Vivian first. "Congratulations on your wedding. The ballroom is beautiful." "Thank you." Vivian shook her hand, her smile warm and genuine. "I'm so glad you could come. How do you know Kendrick?" The question hung in the air. Every eye in their immediate vicinity was watching. Kendrick stood frozen, his face a mask of barely controlled terror. Jasmine's smile didn't waver. Her voice was clear, carrying just far enough to be heard by those nearby. "Kendrick is my ex-husband." The words dropped into the elegant ballroom like stones into still water. Vivian's smile faltered. "Your ex-husband?" "Yes. We divorced about 11 years ago." Jasmine turned slightly, drawing Jordan and Jada forward with gentle hands on their shoulders. "And these are Jordan and Jada, our children." The silence was absolute. Even the string quartet in the corner seemed to falter. Jordan stepped forward first, extending his hand to Kendrick with a composure that would have made any diplomat proud. "Hello, Father. I'm Jordan. We've never met." Jada followed, her voice quiet but clear. "And I'm Jada. It's interesting to finally see you in person." Kendrick looked like he might actually faint. His mouth opened, closed, opened again. No sound came out. He stared at the twins, at Jordan's face, which was so clearly a younger version of his own, at Jada's eyes, which had his mother's distinctive shape, and the blood drained from his face completely. Vivian turned to him, confusion morphing into something sharper. "Kendrick, what is she talking about? You never mentioned having children." Kendrick's voice cracked. "This isn't. We're 10 years old," Jordan said helpfully, his tone polite and devastating. "Mama was pregnant when you divorced her. You told her we weren't your problem. Remember?" The crowd around them had grown, drawn by the spectacle. Jasmine could see faces she recognized. Business leaders, society figures, people whose opinions mattered in Kendrick's world. All of them witnessing this moment. Richard Harrington's expression had shifted from friendly to confused to slowly dawning horror. "Kendrick, you have children. With Ms. Dawson." "This is a misunderstanding," Kendrick said, his voice desperate. "Jasmine, I don't know what you're trying to do." "I'm not trying to do anything," Jasmine said calmly. "You invited me to your wedding, remember? You wanted me to see what I could never be. So here I am. With the children you abandoned. Showing you exactly what we became without you." Vivian had taken a step back from Kendrick, her face pale beneath perfectly applied makeup. "Is this true? Do you have children you never told me about?" "Vivian, let me explain." "Explain what?" Her voice rose, drawing even more attention. "That you have 2 children you never mentioned? That you abandoned your pregnant wife? That you lied to me about your past?" The facade Kendrick had built so carefully was crumbling in real time. Jasmine watched it happen with a strange sense of detachment. She'd imagined this moment in various forms over the years, but the reality was somehow both more and less satisfying than she'd expected. She'd wanted him to see what he'd lost. And now he was seeing it, in the faces of the children he denied, in the success she'd built from his rejection, in the respect she commanded from the very people he'd always tried to impress. "Come on," Jasmine said quietly to Jordan and Jada. "We've seen enough." They turned together, 3 figures in emerald, navy, and cream, and walked toward the exit with measured grace. Behind them, the ballroom erupted in whispers, speculation, and the sound of Vivian's voice demanding answers that Kendrick couldn't give. Jasmine didn't make it to the exit. Richard Harrington caught up with them near the ballroom doors, his expression transformed from confusion to something harder, sharper. Behind him, the elegant reception had devolved into chaos. Guests clustered in tight groups, whispering furiously. Vivian stood frozen in the center of the room, her white gown suddenly looking less like bridal elegance and more like a surrender flag. Kendrick was trying to approach her, his hands outstretched in supplication, but she kept stepping back, away from him, away from the lies that were finally catching up. "Ms. Dawson, wait." Richard's voice carried authority and barely contained anger. "I need to understand what's happening here. You're saying these children are Kendrick's." Jasmine turned to face him, her hand resting protectively on Jada's shoulder. "Yes, Mr. Harrington. Jordan and Jada are Kendrick's children. I was 3 months pregnant when he served me with divorce papers and told me I wasn't good enough for his image. He said the babies, he didn't know it was twins then, were not his problem." Her voice wasn't loud, but it carried. The acoustics in the plaza's grand ballroom were designed for speeches, for toasts, for declarations. Now they carried the truth Kendrick had spent 11 years trying to bury. More guests had turned to watch, drawn by the unfolding drama like moths to flame. Jasmine recognized some of them. CEOs she'd consulted for, business leaders who'd heard her speak at conferences, society figures whose names appeared regularly in the financial pages. "That's a serious accusation," Richard said, but his tone had shifted. He was looking at Jordan, at the unmistakable resemblance to Kendrick, at features that no DNA test would be needed to confirm. "It's not an accusation," Jasmine said quietly. "It's a fact. A fact I've lived with for 11 years while I raised our children alone. A fact that Kendrick apparently didn't think important enough to share with your daughter." Vivian had approached now, her eyes red but her spine straight. She looked at the twins with an expression that broke Jasmine's heart a little. Recognition of innocence caught in the crossfire of adult failures. "How old are they?" Vivian asked, her voice barely steady. 10, Jada answered before Jasmine could speak. "We'll be 11 in February. We were born premature because Mama was working 3 jobs and went into labor while cleaning an office building." The detail landed like a bomb. Jasmine saw several guests exchange glances, saw the narrative shifting in real time. This wasn't a gold digger making claims. This was a woman who'd been cast out and had survived through sheer determination. Marcus Chen had pushed through the crowd, his face stricken. "Jasmine, I had no idea. When you said ex-husband, I never imagined." He looked at Kendrick with undisguised disgust. "You did this. You abandoned her while she was pregnant." "It's not that simple," Kendrick finally found his voice, but it came out weak, defensive. "Jasmine, we can discuss this privately. This isn't the place." "You made it the place," Jasmine cut him off, her voice steel wrapped in silk. "You sent me an invitation with a note telling me you wanted me to see what I could never be. You wanted to humiliate me. You wanted to parade your success and your society bride and make sure I knew I was still nothing in your eyes." She pulled out the note from her clutch. She'd brought it deliberately, knowing she might need evidence, and handed it to Richard. "This is what your future son-in-law sent me. Read it." Richard's jaw tightened as he read Kendrick's cruel words. When he looked up, his expression had transformed completely. "Is this your handwriting, Kendrick?" "Mr. Harrington, I can explain." "Is this your handwriting?" Richard's voice cracked like a whip. Kendrick's silence was answer enough. Vivian took the note from her father's hands, read it, and something broke in her expression. "You invited your ex-wife to our wedding to mock her? The mother of your children." Her voice was rising now, tears streaming down her carefully made-up face. "What kind of man does that?" "Vivian, please let me." "Let you what?" She stepped back again, as if proximity to Kendrick might contaminate her. "Let you lie some more. How many other secrets are there, Kendrick? How many other things did you conveniently forget to mention?" Jordan spoke up then, his young voice cutting through the tension with devastating clarity. "He told Mama she was trash. He said you can't polish trash. He said we weren't his problem and he never wanted to see any reminder of his biggest mistake." The boy's eyes were dry but hard, older than his years. Those were his exact words. "Mama kept the divorce papers. We've read them." A woman in the crowd gasped. Someone else muttered "Christ" under their breath. The society photographer, who'd been hired to capture the elegant wedding, had his camera up, documenting the unraveling in real time. Richard Harrington's face had turned to stone. "Kendrick, is this true? All of it? I was young, I made mistakes. You abandoned your pregnant wife." Richard's voice was ice. "You denied your own children. You lied to my daughter about your past. And then you had the audacity to invite the woman you destroyed to watch you marry into my family. Sir, if you'll just let me explain the context." "The context?" Marcus Chen stepped forward, his voice shaking with anger. "The context is that while you were throwing Jasmine away like garbage, she was pregnant with twins. While you were climbing the social ladder, she was homeless and working 3 jobs. And while you were planning this spectacle of a wedding, She was building one of the most respected consulting firms in the city. The only context here is that you're a coward who abandoned his family. Other voices joined in now, business associates who'd worked with Jasmine, people who'd heard her story in the Forbes article without knowing who the ex-husband was, guests who were simply decent human beings appalled by what they were witnessing. "I've worked with Dawson and Company," a man called out. "Jasmine Dawson saved our acquisition. She's brilliant. And you threw her away. Those children are yours," a woman added. "Anyone with eyes can see it. How could you deny them?" Kendrick was backing up now, his carefully constructed world crumbling around him. Investors were pulling out phones, probably canceling meetings. Business partners were turning away. The society figures he'd spent years courting were looking at him with disgust instead of admiration. Vivian removed her engagement ring, a massive diamond that caught the chandelier light, and held it out to Kendrick. Her hand was shaking, but her voice was clear. "I can't marry someone who would do this. Who could be this cruel? Who could lie to me about something this fundamental? Vivian, please. My father was going to invest $15 million in your company." She let the ring drop to the floor, where it bounced once with a sound like a tiny bell. "Consider that offer withdrawn." Richard nodded grimly. "Indeed. And I'll be making some calls tonight. I think a lot of people need to know what kind of man Kendrick Ray really is." Jasmine had heard enough. She'd come here for closure, not revenge, but she couldn't deny a grim satisfaction at watching Kendrick's facade crumble. She took Jordan's and Jada's hands and turned toward the exit again. "Ms. Dawson, wait." Vivian's voice stopped her. The bride who would not be approached, her eyes red but resolute. "I'm sorry. For what he did to you. For what you went through. You didn't deserve that. Your children didn't deserve that." Jasmine studied Vivian's face and saw genuine remorse there, regret for being inadvertently part of Kendrick's cruelty. "Thank you," she said quietly. "You didn't know. You were a victim of his lies too." Still, Vivian glanced at Jordan and Jada. "They're beautiful children. You should be very proud." "I am," Jasmine said simply. "Every single day." She led the twins out of the ballroom, through the plaza's elegant lobby, and into the cool evening air. Behind them, the sounds of chaos continued. Raised voices, accusations, the death rattle of Kendrick's carefully built empire. On the street, Jordan looked up at his mother. "Are you okay, Mama?" Jasmine took a breath, feeling lighter than she had in 11 years. She thought of the shelter, of the cleaning cart, of the nights spent hungry and afraid. She thought of every obstacle she'd overcome, every time she'd chosen to keep fighting when giving up would have been easier. "I'm perfect, baby," she said, and meant it. "We all are." Jada slipped her hand into Jasmine's. "Can we get ice cream? I feel like we should celebrate." Jasmine laughed, a real laugh, free and genuine. "Yes. Ice cream sounds perfect." They walked away from the plaza, 3 figures in emerald, navy, and cream, leaving Kendrick Ray to face the consequences of throwing away the best thing that ever happened to him. Behind them, a wedding that would never happen. Ahead of them, a life built on love, resilience, and the unshakable truth that worth isn't measured in bank accounts or social status, but in character, courage, and the strength to rise from ashes. Jasmine never looked back. She didn't need to. The past was finally, truly behind her. And the future, their future, was bright with possibility. Please let me know in the comments where you're watching from. Hit subscribe if you re-hooked in and ready to enjoy the more, and be part of our amazing family. Because more beautiful stories will be shared and I don't want you to miss it for anything. Thanks for watching, subscribe and stay tuned.